Disease-carrying rats, flocks of birds, plagues of locusts. What causes these nightmarish swarms and what can we do to combat them? The answers right now on Wild Discovery.
The ultimate nightmare. A swarm. On its own, each individual might seem harmless. Together, they're a force of nature that appears unstoppable. What is a swarm? Why do some creatures come together in uncountable numbers? For some, it's a defense against the threat of a predator. For others, it's a way to find a mate. Or it can be a huge extended family. But not all swarms make our flesh crawl. Our relation with one swarm is as old as civilization itself. To some ancient cultures, honeybees were sacred, and in other cultures, they were domesticated. Either way, we exploit this swarm. Bees make and store honey to keep the colony alive through the winter. Bringing in a stockpile of food is the worker bee's most important job. And it's hard work. Many workers die every day from exhaustion. We've learned to control honeybees, using smoke to calm them, subdue them, making them docile and less likely to sting. Then we steal their honey. Although honeybees do sting, as long as the beekeeper moves slowly, they're rarely aggressive. For countless generations, honey was the only way we could indulge our taste for sweet things. But in our greed for honey, we've meddled with nature. Arizona, North America. And here, we meet a swarm that seems to come from our worst nightmares. To increase honey yields, in the 1950s, African bees were imported to Brazil. But African bees were much too aggressive to be easily controlled by humans. Gradually, bees migrated northwards across the Americas. Until now, these killer bees have reached Arizona and Texas. These bees fear nothing. They're 10 times more likely to sting than a normal honeybee, and take a special dislike to anything dark. In their native Africa, large mammals were a threat to their honey stores, so the bees had to be vicious in defending their nests. Carbon dioxide from a mammal's breath was the signal to attack. As they attack the test balls, the stings are automatically counted. In a matter of minutes, these small paper figures are covered in enough stings to kill a human. The swarm has turned. Killer bees are now a very real problem in the southern United States. Even the vibrations and carbon dioxide from a lawnmower are interpreted as a threat. hesitation. Hundreds of stings, each delivering a small dose of venom, but together, a potential threat to life itself. There's only one way to fend off the assault. Over time, as the bees move north and breed with honeybees, they become less aggressive. Just as we exploit the honeybees' hard work, other swarms are even more efficient at exploiting ours.
Nothing can compare to the unimaginable sight of a vast swarm of locusts sweeping across the land in huge swaths, covering hundreds of square miles. Flying locusts are in the final stage of their life cycle. They start life as hoppers, only moving across the ground. But at every stage, they destroy our crops.
They are searching for food. A biblical plague. What the cutting locust has left, the swarming locust has eaten. What the swarming locust left, the hopping locust has eaten. What the hopping locust left, the destroying locust has eaten. In Africa, these swarms can travel 300 miles in one night. Every 15 years or so, the coming of the rains or a change in temperature triggers a massive migration. A swarm this immense can devour as much as the entire population of New York eats in one day. The best we can do is spray them with insecticide before they reach the next farm. But we're fighting a losing battle, in the field as well as in the home. We may not like cockroaches, but they like us, and they have for thousands of years. Wherever and whenever humans stockpiled food, roaches were there to share it. On a cockroach's tail, tiny hairs vibrate with the slightest air current, warning of approaching danger. In large numbers, cockroaches create a disgusting smell, another deterrent to anything that could threaten them. When nature invades our space without our permission, we declare war. The first plan of attack is simply to bait the cockroach into a sticky fluid. It's caught. Simple, but effective. However, our warm, comfortable homes are a haven for other unwelcome guests. Brown rats, much more recent companions than roaches, joined us from the Near East in the 17th century to exploit our food supplies. And house mice, smaller, able to live in spaces the rats can't reach. Brown rats can afford to sit back and wait. Our obsession with cleanliness sends plenty of food their way. Rats eat almost anything, but any new food must be tested. They sample a tiny amount and then wait. If, and only if, it doesn't make them ill, they'll eat more of it. Clean, comfortable homes. We also create an underworld, a place below our cities we don't stop to think about. Deep in the sewers, rats live and multiply. It's a wonderful nursery. Warm, safe, with no shortage of food. A rat can breed up to 7 times a year, each time bringing as many as 20 babies into the world. Rats sometimes live in groups, swarms of 50 or more, all descended from one female. In cities like New York or London, there are more rats than there are people. And there are more roaches than rats. Down here, cockroaches eat whatever they can find, and rats eat the cockroaches. A whole miniature ecosystem thrives beneath our feet. Out of our sight and out of our control, these hidden worlds are terrifying, the stuff of nightmares and horror movies.
Hitchcock's thriller, The Birds. But first,
Our view of nature is a mixture of fascination and fear. While we try to contain it and control it, we find its raw power disturbing. A bird in a cage becomes a pet, a symbol of our dominion over the natural world. But birds in huge numbers are very different. And depending on your point of view, they can be a spectacular display or a vision of terror. In the southern states of America, red-winged blackbirds gather in huge flocks to feed. They gather all over America, having migrated south to spend the winter. In the southern states, where there's plenty of food, at the end of the day they congregate in massive roosts of up to 20 million birds. Unlike Hitchcock's vision of the birds, these blackbirds won't do us any direct harm, yet we still try to keep them out of our homes. The birds must be moved on. Bird scarers scatter the flocks, sending them to roost somewhere else, anywhere else. The problem is not that the birds destroy crops, but that they create a potential danger to our health. A flock this size produces huge amounts of droppings, which accumulate under trees. A fungus that breeds naturally in the soil now runs rampant, and its spores can cause diseases. On the home front, the battle against the cockroaches continues. It's time to resort to modern technology, a space-age zapper. Drawn into a special bait, the cockroaches climb into the zapper, close a circuit, and 6,000 volts send them to oblivion. But there are always more cockroaches. They're so good at keeping out of sight that to see one means that somewhere close by, hundreds more are hidden. And nature is the expert at recycling. The maze of sewers under our cities could have been designed as cockroach heaven. American cockroaches flourish here because we continually flush down food for them. They breed quickly. A female cockroach lays 16 eggs at a time and carries them around in a purse, keeping them safe until the tiny cockroaches are ready to hatch into the world. During her lifetime, a cockroach can breed 50 times, bringing 800 more cockroaches into the world. It takes 14 months for a cockroach to become fully grown, and it can easily live a further 2 years. Some sewers make very desirable residences. Under the plush hotels of London's Mayfair, so much warm water is flushed away that these sewers have become a tropical paradise for the American cockroach. Yet, in a less opulent part of London, a different class of waste is flushed down to the labyrinth below. These sewers are supplied by bars and restaurants. Under Soho, Instead of American cockroaches, there are Oriental cockroaches. Cockroaches are at home in water. They can swim and spend some time submerged. Despite their name, Oriental roaches originally came out of Africa and may have reached Europe from the Far East in shipments of food. Soon they established themselves as kings of the sewer. Their numbers grew, and their populations reached titanic proportions.
Sulfurous bacteria, more than just a foul smell, it could bring down an entire city. When Wild Discovery continues.
Cockroaches breed quickly, but not as quickly as the swarms of microbes that live in these depths. Every 20 minutes, these bacteria reproduce, doubling their numbers, and in the warm, damp underworld, create a living, breathing blob. As they feed and grow and divide, they exude hydrogen sulfide, the gas that smells of rotten eggs. As this gas drifts upward, it's absorbed by different bacteria. And these bacteria turn the hydrogen sulfide gas into sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid eats away at the mortar, holding the bricks in place. In separating ourselves from nature, we give some creatures a reputation they don't deserve. Piranha. Alone, they're harmless, but in a swarm, they become killers. Or so we like to believe. They haunt our nightmares and become the stars of B-movies.
In the wet season, in the flooded forest of the mighty Amazon, piranha live almost entirely on injured fish. Their fearsome reputation as killers is unfounded, a figment of our imagination. If an injured animal falls into the river, they are drawn to the scent of blood in the water, or the vibration of their prey already in its death throes. Their razor
We divide nature into good and bad, for us or against us. And some that we see as bad is for a very good reason. It's part of our survival instinct, a legacy of our evolution on the plains of East Africa. To be afraid of snakes was generally a good idea. Some snakes can do us serious harm. We don't always have time to think about it, so an instinctive reaction could keep us alive. Even harmless garter snakes can fill some of us with horror. Snakes coming together in a swarm to mate can make them seem even more terrifying. We also have an instinctive fear of some creatures that are harmless because we are creatures of the day, and we are afraid of them because they come from the darkness, from the night. Bats spend the daylight hours hidden in caves, emerging only as the sun goes down. They gather in huge numbers, which also frightens us. For these Mexican free-tailed bats, big numbers offer protection. A bat hawk simply waits for them to take to the air, then trawls through the flock. The more bats there are, the less likely that any one individual will be the unlucky one. As the sun rises, they plunge back into the darkness. In the rush to get back, a few are knocked to the ground. There is no second chance. The ground is covered with cockroaches who waste no time tidying up. They are nature's trash collectors, clearing away the debris, keeping the cave clean. But without such trash collectors, the world would be a very unpleasant place.
And now to other news. Local manual workers have rejected the pay offer of 8.8% and are stepping up their industrial action. Now in its 6th week, the refuse collectors' strike is causing a serious build-up of rubbish left to rot in the streets. Officials are becoming concerned about the possible dangers to health.
After the break, nature's garbage collectors, flies by the millions, when Wild Discovery continues.
With no human trash collectors, nature has a way of cleaning up the overflow. Decaying matter, food for voracious fly maggots. And flies breed at a phenomenal rate. If 2 flies bred at the start of the strike and all their offspring survived, by the 6th week, there would be 30 million flies. And all these flies have one purpose: to make more flies. But flies live around organic waste, manure, and trash. And each one of these flies carries millions of bacteria that spread disease. When populations get too big, they spread out. Adult flies live entirely on sugar. Sugar, carbohydrate, is converted straight into energy. It's fast and efficient. When flies land on our food, they may have come from eating sewage waste. They regurgitate liquid to dissolve their next meal. Then they pass on the bacteria they bring with them. Bacteria that can cause disease. Why isn't the world overrun by flies? Because the food isn't all theirs for the taking. Flies are in competition with other creatures. Creatures that eat the same food and are not willing to share it. A lot of food, and the population grows. But as the population grows, there's less food to go around. Eventually, competition for food puts a natural limit on the size of the population. Sooner or later, there'll be direct conflict. It's only in unusual circumstances that flies build up in such huge numbers.
At Mono Lake in California, the water is naturally salty. Too salty for anything to live, except the brine fly. There are no fish in the lake, no predators to check the number of flies. Brine flies darken the shores of Mono Lake in countless millions.
Mono Lake is unique. Every summer, as the temperature rises, the flies take over, millions upon millions. Even the California gulls that come here to gorge themselves on the flies have little effect on their numbers. Around the world into places they were never meant to be. House mice hitched rides with humans, and when they arrive somewhere new, they simply adapt to new conditions. If mice, or any creatures, are introduced somewhere with no natural predators, or not enough to control the numbers, then there is a population explosion, a plague.
In Australia, the population of humble house mice has once again exploded, giving rise to a devastating plague that destroys crops and ruins livelihoods. Mice normally breed from October to April, but when conditions are right, they breed all year round, and this is the problem. In just 6 months, 2 mice can reproduce to become 2,000. They foul the hay, making it unusable, they gnaw through anything not made of metal, and they infest machinery which may even have to be repaired.
And still, the cockroaches won't be beaten. Time to bring in the professionals. The cockroaches are besieged in their hiding places. Originally used to control termite infestations, liquid nitrogen literally freezes the roaches to death. Although cockroaches sometimes carry diseases, they mostly offend our sense of cleanliness, our pride in our neat, tidy homes. But lurking in the attic is a swarm that has brought death and pestilence to much of the world. Tree rats, and they're very agile. In houses where black rats and brown rats live together, black rats tend to live in the upper stories. But unlike brown rats, black rats carry a special kind of fleas, the fleas that spread bubonic plague through Europe in the 14th century. They brought the Black Death. More than a third of the human population was wiped out. However, bubonic plague isn't just a historical event, a disease of the Middle Ages.
In India, more cases of bubonic plague are being reported every day in this recent outbreak. A campaign to eliminate the fleas that spread the disease is underway, and the Indian Red Cross is organizing the distribution of antibiotics in an attempt to check the spread of the plague. The key to its control may lie with the rats that are known to carry the fleas, and only a few places are known to have escaped the recent outbreak.
Yet, even though they can carry disease, not all cultures see rats as evil, as creatures to be feared. To Hindus, life is sacred. All life. Rats are no exception. In the temple dedicated to the goddess Karni Mata, rats are revered as her reincarnated descendants, the Kabbas. The temple rats are sacred. They never leave the temple, and rats from the outside world never intrude. They're fed on sweets, milk, and food offered by priests and pilgrims who want their blessing. Chapatis, specially made for the rats, are broken up for them by the Roti Baba, the holy man. The temple is in the town of Deshnoke, and despite the waves of bubonic plague that have broken out in India, Deshnoke has never had to suffer the disease. The town is blessed by Karni Mata and her kabas, her rats. Back home, the cockroaches are still undeterred, undefeated. All that remains is to bring in the big gun, the newest technology in the war of cockroaches versus humans. Microwave weapons are being developed as a possible way to control roaches. The theory is that aiming beams of microwaves at the wall cavity where the cockroaches are holed up should simply cook them alive. At certain microwave frequencies, the fluid inside a roach's body heats so quickly it boils. By interfering with the natural order of things, we create results we could have never expected. Our war against nature is never ending. Yet, from nature's point of view, there is one swarm that has infested the whole planet. Humans. We number in the billions. Still growing, still spreading, taking control wherever we go. The ultimate swarm of all.